All right, Putin's smiling tonight. That's the focus of tonight's angle. So just to recap, we know President Trump was found guilty on all 34 counts in Lower Manhattan. And if that's the case, I really think we've reached the sub-basement of U.S. history, this once unthinkable low. So even when it's sunny, by the way, in the nation's capital, when Biden's speaking, always expect a storm of lies and stumbles with wide bands of irony moving through.
We can't let Putin win. Say it again, we can't let Putin win.
Ha! That's funny. Yeah, and Putin must be laughing. Watching Judge Merchan run his courtroom like any Kremlin crony would run his own in Moscow. Whenever a viable threat to his power base emerges, just take it out with Soviet-style justice. Find a crime, any crime, and charge him with it. This is what's facing Biden's likely successor now, Donald Trump.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
He's absolutely right. Remember when they used to accuse him of Russian collusion? Well, what they're doing is Russian impersonation here. And like any show trial, the jackals who cheered on the prosecution, they, of course, are going to indulge in the sickest of fantasies. Close your eyes and everyone imagine Trump at Rikers.
Our amazing commissioner, she is prepared for whatever comes on Rikers Island, and I'm pretty sure she would be prepared to manage and deal with the situation.
You haven't had those discussions with corrections about that situation?
Yeah.
See that woman on his left smiling, drinking the, Pellegrino? Smiling. Of course, what else would Adams be focusing on other than Trump at Rikers? After all, he has violent crime totally under control in Manhattan. Now, if you think the Democratic Party is spending its time trying to figure out how to solve the problems you care about, you've told every pollster that you care about, think again. Their focus has been entirely on holding on to power with an iron fist. And that required their attempts to humiliate Donald Trump, of course, with the ultimate goal of removing him from the campaign trail, which they hope the sentencing actually will do. So Democrats, of course, are going to salivate over the prospect that a man with Secret Service protection leading in most of the polls could be marched off to jail. Phew, Biden won't have to debate after all. Well, they fall asleep at night thinking, Class C felonies, they were punishable, but they do the math. What, it's 136 years total? All 34 counts if you get the maximum? Or Trump in an orange jumpsuit? Yeah. Liberals once believed in preserving civil liberties. I remember those liberals. And they talked about overzealous prosecutors, the danger of prosecutors totally running out of control. But that was out the window. It was out the window with Trump because Trump broke them. Trump revealed them. Today, David Nakamura at the Washington Post explained that even Trump, if he avoids jail, he may be sidelined from doing rallies or any campaigning, saying Trump would be required to clear any out-of-state travel with a probation officer. If Trump were to serve home confinement at his Mar-a-Lago resort, New York authorities would likely have to work with his counterparts in Florida to accommodate him. And liberals who once believed in protecting civil liberties, well, they love contemplating how Trump on probation will also be subject to random searches and even drug tests. Yeah. Look, if you've been wondering when the Biden campaign would actually kick into high gear, you're watching it.
You create a bad guy, a villain, and you tell the story of the villain, and you tell the story of the rescue that's going to come at the end of this movie that we're talking about here, and the end of the story in the movie is Election Day.
Forget the economy, forget the border, forget the attacks on your freedom of movement, forget the fact that they're even coming for your gas-powered cars, your gas stove. Just think that the guy that you were going to pull the lever for, the guy who restored our economy back in 2019, is now a convicted felon.
What do they need to do to get those people to come home? Remind those people of who Donald Trump is. I think the trial, especially if there's a conviction, helps in that effort. So they have a lot of clubs in their bag.
A lot of clubs. Note the language, clubs. Golf or caveman style, John? We didn't need to expose these people because they expose themselves.
We need an American president who's thinking about our problems, not his own. I think Donald Trump is pretty tied up right now in the Manhattan courtroom.
Yeah. The broad jury instructions that allowed the jury to reach a non-unanimous consensus on that add-on crime that we talked about with Andy McCarthy and Jonathan Turley. You heard of the Pick 6 lottery? This was the Pick 3. Tax evasion, election interference, or falsification of records. Again, that was a circular charge, making it completely nonsensical, flying in the face of what we all understood to be the requirement of a truly unanimous verdict with a non-novel application of a law that's never been used in this type of circumstance. How convenient. Even an MSNBCer saw a problem here.
These are the jury instructions, right? 55 pages long. This is incredibly difficult to understand, even though I've read it 4 times over at this point. I still don't get it at certain points. And by the way, you can't take it into the deliberation room.
My best guess is that the 2 lawyers on the jury were probably instrumental in moving the jury to wherever they landed. Now, this is my area of expertise. You can imagine that. Let me explain how this works. Michael Cohen is plenty credible. You can infer intent on Donald Trump. So they moved to their verdict. Well, this was only possible, remember, because Judge Merchan crafted jury instructions that were so confusing, so long, so broad, that it really was almost impossible for a jury not to find Trump was guilty here. But back to Putin. He has to be pinching himself here. This is what they call the great American experiment in democracy? But in fact, Biden's protectors are just copying us. If this were happening in any other country, what we've seen in that Manhattan courthouse, the UN would be demanding an investigation. But in this case, it's just part of the Biden campaign. You saw Matthew Colangelo standing next to Alvin Bragg late today when they were doing their victory lap. And this is, of course, what the globalists are enthusiastically supporting. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
You need to watch this if you struggle with feeling heard. What's something people don't know about unlocking their desires? It's simpler than you think. Picture this. New York, rush hour, everybody's hustling, but sometimes you just gotta stop and ask for what you want. Jesus laid it out pretty clear. Ask and it's yours. Seek and you'll find. Knock and that door's gonna swing wide open. Now, I ain't talking about whispering into the wind here. I'm talking about the kind of asking with conviction, the kind of seeking like it's Black Friday at Macy's, and the kind of knocking that says, hey, I mean business. So what's the real secret? It's all about taking action with a capital A. You gotta be bold, you gotta be persistent, and most importantly, you gotta believe it's already yours. That's not just spirituality, that's street smart wisdom right there. So next time you're aiming for something, remember, just ask, seek, knock. And hey, don't just stand there, go get what you want.